Good morning, members. Rebecca Cross will lead this House in prayer.
Please stand. Lord, grant us wisdom that we may walk with integrity, guarding the path of justice and knowing the protection of your loving care for all. Lord, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our heirs may reach successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today and the gift of friendship we have shared with each other. Amen.
Madam Clerk.
Introductions by youth parliamentarians.
Madam Clerk.
Oral questions by youth parliamentarians.
Aaron McDonnell.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I'd just like to seek a point of clarification before we commence question time today.
Please proceed.
Yesterday in question time, the government whip was answering questions on behalf of other ministers whom were not delegated authority to him. The clerk may tell you that a ruling was given yesterday. However, the ruling that was given is actually inaccurate. The Deputy Speaker advised that the government whip is detailed on this list, provided to all honourable members as the government's spokesperson and delegated minister for other affairs. However, the list clearly states that the Honourable Jordan Kerr is simply the whip. Can you please make a ruling as to whether he can answer questions on the behalf of other ministers that actually are present in the chamber?
We'll hear the submission from the other side as well. Madam Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As noted in my introduction, I believe on Monday when I introduced new Cabinet Ministers, I did mention that Mr Jordan Kerr is our Minister for Youth as well as our House Leader and Party Whip.
That were asked yesterday were on health and, I think, finance, and that meant the whip actually answered those questions.
I thank the member for his submission, but indeed, questions for answer can be directed to any member of Cabinet, and the caucus and the Cabinet can decide. Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of privilege today. Yesterday, the Leader of the Official Opposition failed to provide sufficient copies for this House of an amendment that she introduced. This prevented me as a member in executing my duties for my constituents, and I was unable to provide full representation for my constituents because of the honourable member's failure to provide sufficient copies of amendments, and I ask that you find her in contempt of this House.
The Leader on her submission.
Madam Speaker, I wish to clarify what happened yesterday for those on the backbenches over here of the government who do not seem to know what happened. Madam Speaker, I presented the government via their whip with all of the amendments. Apologies. My whip gave the government whip copies of all the amendments we were to debate, and the chair of committee made a decision to have a recess so that the government could deliberate on these as they'd failed to do so prior. Madam Speaker, it is not the opposition's fault, nor my personal fault, that the government fails to be organised as it has been throughout this entire week's proceedings.
I thank both members for their submissions, and I'll take them under advisement. Madam Clerk.
Oral questions by youth parliamentarians.
Aaron McDonnell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question without notice is to the Minister for the Environment. It was revealed in yesterday's press conference that this government is in cahoots, the back pocket, if you may, of the resources and mining industry. The address from the throne and the Premier herself has indicated that Commonwealth land will grow and strengthen ties with China and India. Further to this, the government intends to introduce a carbon tax to address the issues of climate change. Minister, how can you reconcile your government's commitment to protecting the economically vulnerable by introducing a big fat tax and engaging gross polluters like China and India?
Good question.
Minister.
Madam Speaker, Honourable Youth Parliamentarian, thank you very much for your question. A lot of the evidence covered in, well, a lot of the theory covered in yesterday's press conference was in fact conjecture, so I'm not going to add anything to those rumours. In terms of working with other countries, we do want to be seen as a global leader in our commitment to effecting positive change. And so, yes, we will work with countries across the world, both prominent countries and vulnerable countries, in order to pull them along in line with our policies. We are supporting increased carbon taxes, which implies there is already a carbon tax in place. It's a responsibility of all to reduce our carbon footprint, and by increasing these carbon taxes, we are able to pass on that responsibility to the individuals and the businesses to make everyone accountable for their decisions in their way of life. I'd also like to take this opportunity, as I have the floor, to wish my colleagues luck in the Marrakesh Climate Change Conference, which is happening right now. Unfortunately, I've had to send a delegate, as I know how you feel about cabinet ministers not being present when government is sitting. We want to increase the ability of our citizens to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change, fostering climate resilience and low greenhouse gases in a manner that doesn't threaten food consumption, something which is very close to my heart. And I'm sure that through our consultation, we have a policy to increase carbon taxes, which we will be able then to implement into...
Members.
That would be a question for my finance colleague, but obviously some of the taxes put in place will be looking to help businesses and individuals through innovation to help them. Yes, part of what is mentioned in your policy, yet there's nothing actually which says how you're going to pay for it. Thank you.
Aaron McDonnell on a supplemental.
If I may, thank you. Thank you, Minister. This opposition, I must let you know, Minister, isn't hell-bent on blocking the government at every opportunity. But come on, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Why introduce a big new tax on the people of Commonwealth land under the guise of protecting the environment while you're continuing to let our trading partners carry on as usual? Is this yet not another smokescreen for your economic incompetence?
Economic, Business and Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's pretty inappropriate to regard carbon tax, which is saving our world and Commonwealth land, as a smokescreen to disguise big business from the tax we're going to implement on them.
Mr. Bhutto.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Debt to GDP ratio of British Columbia was as low as 12% in 2007 and 8. Over the years, it has, however, increased to an alarming 20%. Given overambitious policies of government, it is quite evident that over the next few years, debt to GDP ratio is going to most likely double. I would like to ask the minister concerned, since government finally realized it needed a portfolio for finance, better late than never, how is the government going to finance that? Is it going to drown our grandchildren in debts? Thank you.
Business and Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We share your concern that climate change is a very important issue, and we understand that it is important to put the right measures in place. We have been working with our European partners on the aviation directive that they've introduced recently, and we full-heartedly believe in it, and we believe that it's a sustainable scheme that can help the whole world and will not put our Commonwealth land in danger.
Alinia Lawrence.
Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Defence. In light of recent developments in the United States, is the Minister of Defence worried about any instability spilling over into Commonwealth land?
Minister of Defence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Member, for a question. Considering this is the first question I've received so far, it would appears though the opposition does not prioritize national defense. But I'd like to reaffirm that this administration definitely has a policy on defense. In regards to the question, we're observing the developments very closely as of right now. We don't believe there's any concern for any spillover, but we will be continuing to observe closely, and should any of our neighbors to the south would like to come and immigrate here, we're all open. Thank you very much.
Gabriel Lawrence Brooke.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The question is for our Honorable Premier. Would the Premier join me in condemning the Leader of the Opposition who said yesterday that she wanted to privatize the health system in Commonwealth land?
Madam Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As we're all well aware, this government's mandate is to deliver an affordable and sustainable healthcare system within a public delivery system. We have acknowledged that we will look at all options to deliver this. However, we maintain that public delivery will be the best option, but we will consider partnerships with private sector. I am appalled that the opposition will consider privatisation of the healthcare system as the only option moving forwards, without considering the other options and without considering the impacts on the public sector. Thank you.
Sheldon Paul.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question was originally destined to be for the Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Cultural Affairs, but I will, excuse me, but I will gladly accept a response from the Premier. Yesterday, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition decried the government's position on Indigenous affairs, labeling First Nations communities' equal sovereignty over their land as unjustified due to its economic impact. Excuse me, Madam Speaker, I'm trying to direct my question towards the Premier. Madam Premier, are you as utterly appalled as I am that for some reason the opposition thinks that the economy takes precedence over the human rights and dignity of the communities already systematically oppressed within Commonwealth land?
Madam Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This government's position is to recognise all Indigenous peoples and First Nations as equal partners in this economy. This is exactly why our Minister for Indigenous and Cultural Affairs is currently conducting discussions with our Indigenous populations to begin the dialogue with them and to invite them into the fold of leadership in this Commonwealth. We acknowledge that there are past grievances, and we acknowledge that we need to find a way forwards. Our starting step with this is to make Indigenous peoples and cultural groups feel welcome and feel that they can approach us to start dialogues. We will not turn them away simply by saying that we won't hear what they want, that we won't give them what they are looking for. We will consider all options, as is our approach for all policies that we're moving forwards with. Thank you.
Sunil Pickering.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question was, or is, directed to the Minister for Education and Training, but in her absence, I would direct it to the Premier. In the Caribbean, many adults have to forsake their post-secondary education to enter parenthood. Now that the government is willing to provide post-secondary education for all ages, what plans does the government have to deal with the inflow and influx of adults who are eager to challenge the government's sincerity of their plan while simultaneously taking into consideration the already high inflow of teenage applicants?
Good question.
Minister of Social Development.
I thank the member for their very important question, and I do understand that, yes, persons have stopped school to take care of their children. However, on behalf of the Minister of Education, I'd like to say that this government is indeed committed to providing educational opportunities for all, no matter what their age, and we have had a success rate thus far, and this is what this government is committed to doing. So no matter what your age in life, you would be taken care of. Thank you.
On a supplemental, please continue.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I commend the Minister for answering the question that I did not ask. My question to the Premier was, what plans does the government have? I understand the government's willingness to provide post-secondary education to all ages, and she clarified that yet again to me. But I'm asking the government, by way of the Premier, what plans do they have to ensure that this is done correctly?
Let's see the plans.
Minister of Social Development.
These plans would be coming forth through the Ministry of Education, and don't worry, those documents would be forthcoming.
Nicholas Hawkes.
Madam Speaker, my riding, like many others represented at this Parliament, are suffering from a youth brain drain. So I ask the Minister for Economic Affairs what plans this government has to ensure that young people can set up small businesses and incubate new ideas.
Business and Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for your question. As a preliminary to answering it as well, I'd like to acknowledge my support the opposition has for the concern they share for this matter in proposing the Incubation Fund amendment to our Youth Unemployment Bill. There was a little confusion yesterday when voting in favour of the amendment, as I'd raised my support for a similar fund earlier in the week. The reason we rejected the proposal is because we feel supporting small businesses and young people with an entrepreneurial spirit deserves more specific focus and legislation of its own. So I would like to assure the opposition that consultation into the best method of proceeding is already underway, as this government believes in the youth and helping people to help themselves.
Rebecca Cross.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is directed at the Minister of Justice. One of the great virtues of Commonwealth land is the common law and the rule of law. A system of checks and balances is so important in our Constitution. My question to the Government Minister is, what is their position on the separation of powers, and how are they going to ensure a true independent tribunal for dealing with complaints under the Human Rights Code when their government is a puppet government run and controlled by the whip?
Minister of Justice.
Thank you. First of all, we are very committed to going in line with our Constitution. And secondly, each of us are very much dedicated to our individual portfolios. So I find the comments very offensive. Thank you.
Rebecca Cross on a supplemental.
With all respect, Madam Speaker, the Minister hasn't answered the question.
Madam Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for your question, Opposition Member. As you'll note, we are a Parliament and we are a government party. We conduct government business as we are mandated to do. Our roles as Premier, Deputy Leader, Cabinet Minister, Whip are sometimes fluid, and we answer questions as we see appropriate and as suitable to our portfolios. Separation of powers is about the separation between Parliament, the Executive, and the Judiciary. Of course, we would have an independent tribunal for human rights, and of course, the Executive would run as it always has. Our internal business within our party and within this Parliament is running exactly as it's intended to and has no bearing on how the separation of powers already exists and will continue to exist in this government. Thank you.
Mr. Losier.
Much, Honourable Speaker. The fact is, this government's climate plan is all sizzle and no sausage, Madam Speaker. This government has no real plan to address the pressing issue of climate change other than tax our industry into oblivion, Madam Speaker. On this side of the House, we are proud of the hard-working men and women in our resource industry. And while this government has left them behind with their tax grabs and out-of-proportion incentives, our opposition will stand by these hard-working men and women, Madam Speaker. We will continue to defend the workers and the corporations in the resource industry. Will this government commit today
Will this government commit today to saying that we will not tax our industry until they have engaged in meaningful consultation?
Madam Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I commend your enthusiasm, opposition member. I dare say that if the opposition would take a moment to listen and not interject during our responses, you might actually be able. You might actually find that you have the opportunity to contribute constructively to what this government and what this parliament is seeking to do, and your views would be taken on board. Thank you.
The bell ends question period. Madam Clerk.
Orders of the day.
Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I call the closing speeches of this Parliament.
Honourable members, it's hard to believe that this is our final sitting of the Youth Parliament. The last few days have gone by so quickly, and it was regrettable to call the end of a question period. Thank you for being here, for actively participating, and for doing so with respect and great humour. You have brought some life to this chamber. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize the mentors who have taken time from their busy lives to join us, sharing your knowledge and experiences. You truly have done a stellar job. Thank you so very much. I also want to thank Mr. Rick Hansen for so graciously agreeing to act in the role of Lieutenant Governor. He is truly an inspiring individual and an amazing role model. As you can imagine, the event would not have been possible without the support of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and all of their wonderful staff. And a special thank you to the Honourable Ingrid Moses-Catliff and Mrs. Phyllis Evans from the British Virgin Islands House of Assembly for joining us and offering your assistance. We are ever so grateful to CPA and to the British Virgin Islands. Please join us in a round of applause. I would also like to again extend my gratitude to all those of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia who worked so very hard to bring this event together. As you may know, in April of 2017, we will mark the 100th anniversary of women being given the right to vote and stand for office in the province of British Columbia. Related to this milestone, in 2018, we will create the 100th anniversary of the election of BC's first woman member of the Legislative Assembly, Mary Ellen Smith. Women like Mary Ellen Smith and the people involved in the suffragist movement in British Columbia have a lot to teach us. The campaign to extend the vote to women spanned 45 years. These people set their eyes on a goal and persevered until that dream became a reality. Their dedication and commitment changed the nature of politics in British Columbia. Mary Ellen Smith and those involved in the movement to extend the vote to women in British Columbia were leaders and role models who worked hard to make their communities a better place. I am proud to say that today, more than 38% of the members of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia are women. That is a Canadian record. All of you have the potential to make a positive difference in shaping the future of your own communities and countries. I trust that this week's Youth Parliament will inspire and empower as you return to your homes. For those of you unable to attend the Remembrance Day ceremony and luncheon later this morning, I want to wish you a safe journey home and all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you so very much for visiting British Columbia.
Good morning, everybody. Let me start by thanking all of the youth parliamentarians. The success of this program relies on your participation and engagement. So thank you for your contributions throughout the week. I think when you started this exercise at the beginning of the week, none of you knew each other except those who were traveling from the same jurisdiction. You wondered probably what you're getting yourself into, but now you know. And you're leaving probably, we hope, with some remorse that perhaps this event could have lasted longer, or that it will occur again, and that all of you could be in the same place one more time at least. I would also like to thank everyone who provided support in making this event possible, from Madam Speaker through all of the employees of the Legislative Assembly, those at Government House who put on just a fabulous time for us last night, and of course, who can forget about the entertainment. I think we can all agree that this Youth Parliament has been a memorable and an enjoyable time. We certainly hope so. It has been fascinating to watch friendships develop during the CYP 8 over the last few days. I've had the opportunity to attend some international conferences during the course of my career, and I assure you that these connections you have made here at CYP 8 will last a lifetime. We certainly hope so. The CPA Youth Parliament program focused on parliamentary democracy. As you likely noticed, a great deal of the House proceedings followed procedures based on history, tradition, and practice. However, keep in mind that although parliamentary democracy is rooted in history, it is evolutionary in nature. Much has changed since the earliest days of Parliament, and much continues to change. During the House proceedings of the past few days, we saw many different approaches and perspectives during your debates. There are many ways to make parliamentary democracy work, and this is one such vehicle, one such important vehicle that enables that to do so. CYP 8 was the beginning of a conversation that I encourage all of you to continue. And as I've said before, when you return to your home jurisdictions, make sure that you promote the CPA and all the great work that it does. And try to the best of your ability, throughout your early careers, maybe your later careers, to get more actively involved in Parliament, perhaps politics, parliamentary life by way of becoming a member, standing for election, or as parliamentary staff. Seek ways to share what you have learned and continue on the road of professional development. On behalf of everyone here at the Legislative Assembly, it has been a pleasure hosting all of you. I will now turn the floor over to your youth leaders to provide their closing comments. It's been an honor and a privilege having you with us this week, meeting all of you, speaking with you, hearing you debate, and the collective rapport that all of you have had together now this time going forward. And I hope that over the course of the coming months and years that at least some of you, if not all of you, manage somehow to reconnect or to remain connected. Thank you very much.
Madam Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, everyone. It has been a whirlwind of a week, but we made it. In New Zealand, there's a Maori proverb which goes, "He aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata," which means, what is the most important thing in the world? It is the people, it is the people, it is the people. This is not only a metaphor for parliamentary democracy. It perfectly captures the most valuable part of my experience here at the Commonwealth Youth Parliament. This week, I had the pleasure of meeting a wealth of inspiring individuals from across the Commonwealth in the form of youth parliamentarians, mentors, government officials, organisers, and the many, many others involved in making this event a reality. If nothing else, although believe me, there are many other things, what will forever stick with me from this experience are the multitude of genuine connections I have made with the people I have met this week. On behalf of us all, I would like to express my gratitude to Ms. Meenakshi Da and her team here from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, without whom we simply would not be here today. I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the mentors, and also in particular to those who worked with the Progressive Party, MLA Spencer Chandra Herbert, MSP Kate Forbes, and MP Chathura Sandeep Senaratne. Your wisdom and counsel this week has been second to none, and we truly appreciate your time and patience in helping our newly formed government learn to govern. Equally to you, Madam Speaker, Mr. Craig James, Ms. Kate Ryan Lloyd, Ms. Susan Soriel, Ms. Alison Lloyd, Mr. Atu Sogomonian, and the myriad of others in your team. None of this would have been possible without you. Thank you for your support, for co-hosting this event in beautiful Victoria, and for your constant willingness to guide us, even through the moments of mild chaos that the Progressives sometimes found itself in. Which leads nicely to our opposition members. Thank you for challenging us through excellent debate and for holding us to account with intellect and candor. The opposition has played a crucial role in this youth parliament, and we have thoroughly enjoyed debating, answering questions, and raising points of order with them this past week. A special thank you to my illustrious counterpart, the Leader of the Opposition, Ms. Del Piano, Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Mr. McDonnell, and Opposition Whip, Mr. Horton, for your hard work, dedication, and good humour this week. Lastly, I wish to say a personal thank you to the members of the Progressive Party. Thank you for electing me as your Premier and for having confidence in my ability to lead you through the Commonwealth Youth Parliament. This has been an incredible opportunity for me, and it has been an absolute pleasure and privilege to lead you. I have been in awe at the caliber of speeches and responses from all the youth parliamentarians this week. It has been truly humbling and inspiring to hear your voices. Thank you to my members of Cabinet, who so ably managed their portfolios that I never needed to worry. And a huge thank you to my Deputy Leader, Ms. Hussain, and Whip, Mr. Kerr, without whom I could not have done this. For one, I certainly would not have had the stamina to do as many laps of the chamber as Mr. Kerr has clocked up in only 3 days. To conclude, Madam Speaker, it is the people that have made this Parliament what it was. It is the people, it is the people, it is the people. Thank you.
Calling upon the Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to reiterate what the comments that the Honourable Premier across from me has said here, in the fact that has been such an absolute privilege to be here today. Never, as I boarded my plane in Sydney on Saturday morning, would I have imagined that I would have the privilege to stand here before all of you as a Leader of the Opposition, as a member of the Commonwealth Youth Parliament, and certainly as a member of a greater variety of people who come from all corners of the Commonwealth who have been so incredibly inspiring throughout the course of this week. I would like to thank the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association in New South Wales for nominating me, and all of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association branches for their organisation and support of this youth parliament. We have all come to this place with different life experiences and political views, but it is a commendment to all of us here, Madam Speaker, that we have been able to work together, about sometimes with a heated debate, to pass important legislation and discuss issues affecting all people across our Commonwealth. Despite the fact, Madam Speaker, that this government continued to make idealistic plans on the fly, and that this opposition held them accountable time after time again, we have managed to overcome our differences and work together for the benefit of all in Commonwealth land. Madam Speaker, I hope each and every youth parliamentarian here takes these experiences back with them to their respective Commonwealth nations. I hope each and every one of you savour your last moments you have here in this House, in this incredibly special place, a home of democracy, and never forget what you have learnt here and throughout the course of this week. Madam Speaker, I would like to wish the delegates from the British Virgin Islands all the best for the 9th Commonwealth Youth Parliament, which I'm sure will be just as fantastic as we have experienced here today. Thank you to the CPA, Madam Speaker, the British Columbia Legislature, yourself, Madam Speaker, mentors, and all my fellow youth parliamentarians from whom I have learnt so much. I hope our paths cross again in the future, and I can't wait to see what the future holds, not for you as the leaders of tomorrow, but for the leaders of today. Thank you.
And from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Secretariat, Ms. Meenakshi Dar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At the CPA, we see young people as assets to a country's development, and we believe you should be empowered to realise your potential. As such, our annual Commonwealth Youth Parliament is one of our most important programmes, and we are delighted that you could all join us. This is the first time that the Commonwealth Youth Parliament has been hosted in Canada, and it is particularly exciting to be here in British Columbia in the year that the Legislative Assembly are celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote, a fitting theme for this year where the Commonwealth Youth Parliament has, for the first time since becoming an annual event, had women both at the head of government and of the opposition. Young people have a proven capability to lead change and are a vital and valuable investment for now and the future. As the CPA Secretary General noted in his opening speech, it is precisely the energy, imagination and views of young people that the CYP aims to capture, and I believe we have done exactly that. As our young parliamentarians, I know you will agree with me that Parliament is the key pillar of any functioning democracy. In fact, it is difficult to imagine what kind of democracy can exist without an effective Parliament that scrutinises governments and ensures transparency while promoting good governance. Furthermore, there can be no democracy where the voices of our citizens are not heard or amplified through a strong and independent Parliament. The CYP was designed to demonstrate to potential future young parliamentarians the fundamentals behind the processes of Parliament. It seeks to show, to some extent, how most Commonwealth parliaments are able to make legislation, to debate matters of national and international concern, to demand accountability from those in government, to make use of committees, and to make and enforce their own rules of conduct, practice, and behaviour. I would like to thank you all very sincerely, our young Commonwealth parliamentarians, for joining us at 8 CYP. It is my sincere hope that over the week this programme has offered you an opportunity to experience one of the key institutions which underpins democracy and good governance, and has helped you to appreciate the skills that are required for sound debate and the other aspects of the legislative process. Mr. James said in his opening remarks this week that every legislature is a microcosm of society, in that it represents the wide range of backgrounds. You, as the Commonwealth Youth Parliament, are no different. As young people under 30, you represent a demographic that makes up 60% of the Commonwealth. Selected by your parliaments, you represent 22 nations and 32 jurisdictions. I know that the significance of this exercise will last in your memories as you prepare for possible futures, careers in Parliament. I also believe that this opportunity will provide you with the knowledge to make you a better and more informed citizen of the Commonwealth. I think you will agree with me, however, that this programme has not been solely focused on the principles of parliamentary democracy, but has largely centred around those of openness, inclusion and friendship. You have taken the rare opportunity to interact with your counterparts from across the world, forging friendships over the course of the CYP that span oceans and continents, and I am sure you will be maintained on your return to your home jurisdictions. The CPA each year holds an annual CPA conference for our own members, where we report back on our work to member jurisdictions which you represent. The Youth Parliament is, of course, one of the key programmes we will report on this year, and who better equipped to speak about it than yourselves? As such, those of you that would be interested in presenting your experience of this Youth Parliament at the next CPA conference in 2017, please do indicate your interest and leave your names with my colleague Arlene if you would like to speak on behalf of this Youth Parliament. I'd like to thank you all for your engagement over the course of this programme and for taking time to provide us with valuable feedback, which we will be using to shape the 9th Commonwealth Youth Parliament hosted by the Parliament of the British Virgin Islands on behalf of the Caribbean region. With your assistance, we will work to develop and refine the Commonwealth Youth Parliament year by year, and engage even more bright and enthusiastic young people from all corners of the Commonwealth. I thank you, but before I depart this podium, I'd like to, on behalf of the CPA and behalf of you all, to make some small tokens of appreciation to our hosts here at the British Columbia Legislature. A rather fetching goodie bag for Madam Speaker. Mr. James, the clerk. Thank you so much. Ryan Lloyd, our Deputy Clerk. For Ms. Allison, thank you so much for coming all the way from and to Artur, who's kept us on time and on schedule every morning.
Thank you, Meenakshi. Calling upon the Honourable Ingrid Moses Scatliff, Speaker of British Virgin Islands House of Assembly.